All right, everyone, thank you again for being here. My name is Dee Williams. I am the Career Services Manager for undergraduate students. I work with human services students, obviously, which is why I'm here. My partner in crime today is Jen Ginsberg. Jen, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Associate Director of Employer Relations. My team connects with employers to help you guys have pipelines for internships and jobs.
And so, one of our goals today, and I don't think he was able to join us, but Jen and I and Mariana and Ruben got together and we were talking, and our goal was to provide more opportunities because we understand that with human services, your field work is a huge component. And so we wanted to give a little bit more support. And so that's what we're doing today. Jen, next slide, please. So, um, in terms of what that support looks like, the career advisors for human services are going to be myself and Bushra, who's out of our Wheeling campus. As Jen shared, she's the employer relations manager who Jen and I work together with students. We have appointments with students. We had one just yesterday. Hopefully, we'll have more coming up. Where if it's a career focused meeting appointment, then our goal is to get together and kind of talk through what it is you want, what it is you're looking for, and share some ideas and thoughts about what we're seeing, what Jen is finding from our employer partners. The success coaches, Mariana, Marley, Erica, Art out of Wheeling. Ruben is the department chair, and then Ebony Bradford Thomas and Tara Bryant Edwards are the faculty. This is your support. You have more than that also, but this is your main areas of support. And our goal is to make sure you know that we are here and we're available. You can make an appointment with me, you can make an appointment with your student success coaches. And again, Jen is available to also meet. And I know once the school year kicks back off, Ruben and I have met with students before as well. So we're all willing to do that. Our goal is to make sure that you're successful, that you find the opportunities to get experience and also to build out your network because that's how your career gets that boost that you need. Jen, next. So, what's the timeline look like? Um, for many of you, you've already taken the first step in terms of having either appointments or even having field work in place. But for those of you who this might be new to, here's kind of what we've put together. As you can see at the very bottom of the page, there is a link that you can click on. But step one is exploration. So we want you to kind of understand what the internship requirements are. And we're going to go over that in a little bit. We also, from there, we need to make sure that your marketing materials, that's your resume and your cover letter, are doing their best possible job. And so we encourage you to use Handshake for that. Get your resume on there. Our goal is to get that back to you as soon as possible, 24 to 48 hours, business hours. We want to make sure that you are presenting yourself in the best way possible. And so that might mean that your resume or your cover letter gets kicked back to you and with some suggestions on improving it. And that's not because we're trying to be punitive. That's absolutely because we want it to put you in the best light possible. It's super competitive in the Chicagoland area. There's so many amazing companies, large and small, that are looking for talent, and they have a lot of different places they can go. So we need your resume and cover letter to really shine. And so that's why we're going to kick it back in some instances and say, hey, maybe past tense, or don't forget to include a skill section, or make sure it's in reverse chronological order. All things we can talk about when you create an appointment with us. Um, Also, it's creating a list of potential sites. And one of the things that we try to encourage you is even if you don't see it listed, when you go to Handshake or you go to NPO or you go to different sites, even if you don't see a position listed, but you have an organization in mind, we love that. Jen and I are big fans of that because we want to work with you to also take a closer look at how do you reach out when there's nothing posted. Step two is preparing and applying. So you've begun the process. You know what's required. Your resume and your cover letter are absolutely doing their best to present you, and you have some sites in mind that make sense. Now you're looking. keep track of your applications. We encourage you to use a tracker, and it could be as simple as using an Excel spreadsheet. Jen and I met with a student just yesterday, and they told us, I prefer to write it down in my notebook. Whatever works for you. I don't care if you use paper. I don't care if you use your iPad. Whatever works for you. Keep track, because I can tell you that in my past, I've applied for jobs and I've been contacted after applying for multiple jobs only to say the wrong name to the person who was applying. Oh, is it this job? So keeping track is a great way to make sure that you don't put yourself in that embarrassing situation. Will that stop you from getting an opportunity to interview? Not necessarily, but it also doesn't paint you in the best light, and that's not what we want. Um, Practice your elevator pitch in interviewing. So we're here for that also. We can set up an appointment not just to look for jobs, not just to review your resume, but also to do an interview. If you don't do it with us, do that practice interview with someone who's not going to tell you that every answer you give is the world's best answer. They're going to be open and honest with you, because the goal is not to make you feel great. The goal is to get you prepared, and preparation will help you feel great about that. So I've had people tell me that awful answers I've given were good. I stopped working with those people. I needed to work with someone who was going to be honest with me and help me. Don't just tell me it doesn't work, but tell me why it doesn't work and tell me what might work better. That's what we're here for. I have had over 10 years of interview experience where I've interviewed people from entry level positions to director level positions and made hiring decisions. And Jen has had extensive experience as well doing the same. So part of what we enjoy doing is helping to prepare people, and we're here for that. Step 3 is registration and approval. So once you've been offered the internship, make sure that you're letting me know. Like, I don't have to be the person who directed you to the internship. Jen doesn't have to be the person who put the internship in front of you. You might find it all on your own. That happens. But let us know so that we can make sure you get all the information in Handshake, because we want you to get credit for this internship. And also make sure you're working with your student success coach. Like, they're going to be your biggest supporters in this, because they're working with you more than anyone else, more than faculty, certainly more than me as a career advisor. So make sure that they're aware of what's going on also, that they can get you enrolled in the appropriate course. Because again, getting the internship is just part of the battle. Making sure you're in the right class so you get credit for that internship towards graduation is another part of that. So make sure that they're aware of that. Jen?
All right. So this is a very short list among a ton of different sites that you guys can utilize for internships. My intent with this list was to showcase the variety that human services students are able to take advantage of. So depending on what you're interested in, think outside the box. Just because you're in human services doesn't mean that you have to stay in this little box that says that you need to be a therapist or you need to be a human services specialist. There are so many things that you can be doing with this degree, and it's what you're comfortable with, what you're passionate about, and there really is almost an infinite number of opportunities out there for you guys. So, even you might see Pause Chicago is listed on this list, and you're probably thinking, what in the world would I be doing at an animal shelter? But there are positions and internships like an adoption intern. You help screen behaviors and screen possible foster or adopters. You have to understand behaviors and you have to understand people and humans in order to do that effectively. So that kind of thing, thinking outside the box, if you are an animal lover but you also love people, that would be a fantastic opportunity. They're actually looking for interns right now. The Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, they are always in need of people doing internships and jobs. If you enjoy working with the elderly, something like Little Brothers, Friends of the Elderly. If you're interested in immigration and advocacy rights, that's World Relief. If you're interested in disabilities and autism, there's Center for Autism and Related Disorders. There really is anything that you're interested in. there is some organization, some small business, some large business that is going to be excited to take on interns. And so this list is obviously not even a small percentage of what's out there. And if you're just not sure where to even start, Dee and I are happy to help you create that list of options out there. And like Dee said, just because an internship isn't posted somewhere doesn't mean that's not an option. There are a ton of employers out there that are excited to create an internship based on the student's interests and needs and match it to what the employer needs. There are always projects that they need help with, but they don't necessarily have the funding to hire someone on or to even have a volunteer do it. Internships are a perfect way to do that. And so that leads into my first really big point that I want to get through, is that unpaid internships and fieldwork are completely okay. Because you guys have the ability to apply for what we call a stipend, that stipend will pay you during the 10 weeks that you're in internship or fieldwork. The caveat with you guys is that because you have 3 fieldwork experiences, you're only eligible to do the stipend once. And that's just to make it fair to the other students in other majors, because they're only eligible for 1. But again, with the unpaid internships, from my experience, those are just as valuable as the really competitive ones, because these unpaid internships are usually with small businesses or nonprofits that need the help, are doing really great work in the community, but don't have the funding. And so those smaller organizations, you're going to get a lot more mentoring, a lot more information. You're going to take a lot more from that experience. So absolutely do not shy away from unpaid. That is completely okay. And again, the application is part of the Handshake submission, so you don't necessarily want to apply for the stipend until you've actually accepted an internship with an organization. As a heads up, some sites will require a driver's license. If that is something that you just are not interested in ever driving a car, that is completely okay. Just make sure that you're reading through the descriptions so that you're not applying for those and then, applications are a little time consuming, so you don't want to waste your time applying for something that you're not really interested in. And Dee, talked about this, and I'm going to drive it in again. Use your support team. We are all here to support you guys. And I know all of us, I can speak for all of us, that we would feel horrible knowing that anyone is kind of out in left field, just not knowing where to go to get help. There are so many people that can help you throughout this process. Internships and fieldwork can be a little intimidating to some people, and that's completely okay. That's totally normal. But use us. We will make it as less intimidating as possible. We want to make sure that it's an exciting experience, that it is fruitful, and that it's an experience to help you long term, building up your resume so that when you do graduate, you have all of this great experience to offer a company to hire you on full time. That's obviously the whole purpose of doing field work and internships. So again, Career Bridge, that's your career advisors, that's employer relations, myself, your success coach, and faculty, as well as the department chair. Any of us can answer questions, specifically if you want help with your documents, your resume, cover letter, interviewing, and then even submitting the request for internship. All of those things Career Bridge can assist with. Even if you're just not sure where to start, if you have no idea what you're interested in, we can all help with those kinds of things and help you create a list of options. So don't feel embarrassed, don't feel any kind of way about reaching out. We're excited to help you guys. And now the dreaded requirements. So human services majors, you guys are doing 3 fieldwork experiences. So the first one is 291, and then there's 292, and your last one, typically in your senior year, is 493. Each of those fieldwork experiences will require 100 hours of on-site work. A lot of opportunities are virtual now, which is fantastic. Employers have learned how to pivot so that students can still do these internship experiences in a remote type of environment, so to reduce the risk of COVID exposure. Again, you know, if you're not sure what to look for, if you're not sure what to search for in the search bars, Dee and I are happy to help with those kinds of things. So the 100 hours essentially isn't a huge heavy lift. I know that that number seems a little big, but over 10 weeks, that's only 10 hours a week. That's no big deal. That's 1 or 2 days a week. If you want to spread it out even more, 3 days a week. That also doesn't mean that you're limited to 100 hours. If you're super excited and you have the time, do more. I mean, the more experience you can get from this, the better. These contexts that you're going to be creating during these fieldwork experiences, hold on to them. They will help you long term. Let's say you love one of your fieldwork sites and you would love to work for them long term. You hold on to those networking opportunities and those contacts so that you can reach out once you graduate and say, I'm done with my program. I'm excited. I loved working with you guys for my internship and fieldwork. What do you think? What do you think about hiring me on? So every little bit is going to connect the dots. Once you complete the coursework, well, during completion of the coursework, you are actually doing your fieldwork hours. So they kind of go together. You're going to be reflecting in the course about what you're doing on site during your work hours, whether it's virtual or on site. So it's important that, again, you are registered for the internship course, HSM 291, 292, or 493, to ensure you're getting credit for those hours. They do need to be spread out over the 10 weeks. So let's say you finish 100 hours in 3 or 4 weeks. No, you cannot leave the site early because the purpose is to do it for an extended period of time. If you do meet that 100 hours right off the bat and very quickly, great. Just continue on with those hours because we do need you to be completing internship work every single week of that term. Your fieldwork site and the role that you're being hired for will be reviewed and approved by our internship manager, Carter Caldarelli. So he's not necessarily going to be your point of contact for assistance, but he is the one that essentially reviews the details and makes sure that it's all of the information that we need is being submitted. We need a description of the actual duties that you'll be completing, company name, your supervisor's name, contact information, and that's simply because we're going to be sending surveys to those supervisors to see how you're doing, and we will also send you surveys to see how the site is doing. If you're having a bad experience, it's important for us to know so that we maybe avoid that site again, or maybe we try to investigate why it wasn't a great situation. And then if it's a great internship site, let's try to, you know, have more students go there. You know, all of that feedback is really important. We do read every bit of that and take those things into consideration. So it's important that you're telling us if there are issues or if there's fantastic things to take advantage of. And again, there is a link at the bottom here. We will share out this presentation with the coaches as well as the YouTube link for this presentation probably tomorrow. So the coaches will have access to that and they can share with any students that are looking for it. And again, there are so many resources on the CareerBridge website within NLU. Utilize those resources. It will give you step-by-step directions on how to submit through Handshake, but again, Dee is happy to help with that. But it will also give you links to different things about the process, different things that are needed, the timeline again. So definitely take advantage of that link here to the resources. And then last but not least, I do want to open it up to questions from students that are logged in today. I did want to include contact information for all of the support team that I had listed earlier. And that's to make sure that everybody has easy access to everyone listed. And so this is going to make it much more seamless. We don't want students being afraid to reach out to us. So any questions you have, here is the info. We are happy to help. And with that said, I do want to open it up to questions here. And there is a question about the fieldwork hours. So you guys have 3 fieldwork hours. The actual hours that you're doing on site is 100 hours, and then you're doing 20 hours of classroom work. So you may see a number 360, and that's where that is coming from. The 100 hours are what's being on site. 20 hours is what you're doing in the classroom. And feel free to type in your questions in the chat. That way, Dee or I are happy to answer those questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can answer this question, but will we be back on campus in September? Or
That's a great question. We haven't received the confirmation from the president just yet. I'm going to lean towards, you know, keeping everybody safe is the priority right now. And with the majority of the country's cases increasing, it's just not in everyone's best interest to have you on campus when we do have the option to do things virtually. For those of you that are doing fall internships, we can definitely work with sites to see if there are virtual options. So don't worry that there's going to be a lack thereof. A lot of employers are open to kind of creating things for you guys. And Paola, that's kind of on the same front. If they close everything again, we will have to pivot, and we'll do it on a case-by-case basis. But for right now, I mean, obviously fall term is not for another 2 months. If your schedule allows it, internships or fieldwork can always be pushed back by a term. I don't think it's, crazy to push it back to winter if that's something that's possible. So it's definitely a concern, but your guys' safety and well-being is our #1 priority. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you're not being exposed unnecessarily. So if that means having classes virtually for another quarter, or even half of the quarter, hopefully we'll be getting more information by August about the fall quarter. But we will be here to answer questions throughout the process. So yeah, just keep those questions coming. We'll answer them as best as we can. Yes, Rosa, that is a fantastic question. So Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they don't have a quote-unquote internship program, but their part-time behavioral technician positions are phenomenal to use as an internship opportunity. That's actually why I had reached out to them initially, was because that opportunity is phenomenal to use as kind of as a foot in the door into human services, into the industry. And so don't think that because it's listed as a part-time job, it's not usable as an internship. Same with volunteer opportunities. A lot of volunteer opportunities are really, really robust. Depending on the description of things that you would be doing, that can absolutely be used as an internship as well. And if you're not sure, contact Dee and I so that we can kind of look into that. But they are a fantastic organization, and they have locations all over. So definitely check them out. Regina, you had asked about the YWCA. That organization has to do with domestic violence, and so they have a variety of internships as well. And if you want to reach out to Dee and myself, we can absolutely schedule some time one-on-one with you to kind of get some more information on the actual duties that you would be doing within different internships at the YWCA.
Yeah, one of the things I want to stress, so first of all, congratulations. That's amazing, Rosa. But one of the things I want to stress is these internships are not just, please don't just look at these as a graduation requirement. Not saying that you are, but this is such an amazing opportunity for you all to create a long lasting relationship. Networking is how a lot of people get jobs these days, and now more than ever. So when you get these, one of the things I like to tell people is you need to own the heck out of that. You need to own the heck out of it. You need to take the initiative. You need to be proactive, ask questions. You may run into some people who aren't willing to be, who aren't receptive to you asking questions. Find someone who is, because this isn't just about graduating. This isn't just about you getting some hours in. This is potentially an opportunity for you to determine whether this is something you want to do long term. So this is so much bigger than just that. So I strongly encourage you. And if you have questions about the approach you can take, if you have questions about what it is you want to do, um, let us know. Reach out so that we can walk through those with you.
Leoshe, that is a really, really good question. And that actually comes up a lot, so I'm glad you asked that. You absolutely do not have to. You can. I think, in my humble opinion, doing your fieldwork with 3 different sites is probably the best way for you to get different kinds of experience. I think that is the best way to try different things out. Maybe you try working with the elderly for one of them, and maybe you try working with kids in another one, and maybe you try doing something more community-based for another one. This way, you're not limiting yourself, and you're trying different things out. This is the perfect opportunity to try things out and figure out what you like and what you don't like. Figuring out what you don't like is just as important as what you are interested in, because I myself, I wasn't required to do an internship, and I found out the hard way that what I had always had my heart set on doing, I couldn't do. And so it's definitely important to kind of do trial and error, so that when you're ready to job search after graduation, it's not so, kind of, I don't know if I would be interested in this. I don't know if that's something that I can do or want to do. And yes, within the same organization, doing different roles, most organizations, they can do some kind of rotational, for your first one, it can be with, this department, the second one can be with a different department. That's definitely an option as well. So these are great questions. I'm so excited that you guys are kind of thinking outside the box and thinking about this long term. So what other questions do you guys have? I wish I had waiting room music to play in the background. So I don't want to keep everybody for no reason. So hopefully this information was really helpful. When and if you do have questions, I know there were a couple of private messages. No, Ruben doesn't approve the sites. That's Carter's responsibility from the previous slide. He's the internship coordinator, so he has a set of requirements that he's reviewing. So Ruben is a great resource for information, for suggestions, for support. But we don't bog him down with with the day-to-day kind of admin things like approving every single site.
Daisy also had a question about the length of the internships. It's 3 terms, correct? Because it's 3 classes.
Yep, it is 3 specific, 3 separate opportunities. So you can't double up 2 field work in the same term. They do kind of build on each other. So the intent is also that you're kind of building from one to the next, and kind of either increasing your responsibilities during the internships, or that you are trying different things out, just to make sure that you're getting the most out of your internship experience. And keep in mind, internship and fieldwork for you guys are interchangeable words. Yours is called fieldwork because that is the accreditors is, requiring 3 separate fieldwork experiences, but it's essentially your internships.
And then I had another question, just wondering, in your experiences, you've been working with students and also for D, on average, how many applications do students submit to get an internship? And of that many, how many end up shaking out, right? So if I'm a student, how many should I be applying to at a time to increase my chances of securing one? Because I think they're in a good place right now where they have a couple months, but also want to make sure that, I think even with COVID now, that they're aggressively looking for internships, because I think it might be somewhat of a challenge. So just want to encourage students, and that way I can also help them manage their time with the amount of work and time it might take and meet with students. But on average, how many of you have been seeing for students?
Mariana, that's a great question. And I think, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, it's hard to give a concrete answer to that in the moment because of COVID, and
Right.
that's put a damper. We're in a better place, even if COVID continues and places continue to get shut down. We're in a better place than we were in March because organizations have had an opportunity to adjust a little bit. It doesn't mean that we won't see things shut down completely. It's, if we could read the tea leaves, then we probably all have won the lotto by now. But what we do know is that companies are adjusting, and Jen can speak better to that in terms of what they're doing, because she's directly helped organizations. They've reached out and said, how do we do this? How do we come up with something? And so from my perspective, they couldn't be asking a better person than someone who's looking to bring them into the fold anyway to help our students, because she is going to be super student focused. Before I kick it to Jen, I would say that it's in all of our students' best interest to apply for multiple opportunities, because again, the competition in the Chicagoland area is going to be fierce. And I don't say that to intimidate anyone, but I say that so that we know what we're dealing with. I'd rather go in having an idea of what I am facing than not. So competition will be fierce because the options are being limited somewhat by COVID right now and by that uncertainty. So I would see, I'd attempt multiple opportunities. And I'd expect that that's what we're going to have to do. And so that means tailoring your resume potentially multiple times. That means maybe having multiple appointments. But we're here for that. So let us know. Jen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Dee, everything, you hit the nail on the head. Applying for as many opportunities as possible so that you're not putting all of your eggs in one or a few baskets. But another thing to keep in mind is that what Dee and I are able to offer students is working together as, a group to kind of figure out what you're interested in. And I can think about different organizations that are able to mold and create an internship based on your interests. I've had a lot of employers over the last couple of months say, we would love to take on interns. What do you think your students want to do? And so with the kind of removing the issue with the unpaid internships, tons and tons of employers need help right now. I mean, there's been layoffs, there's been all kinds of things like, pulling back on hiring and budget cuts and things like that. So an intern that is unpaid is free labor and free assistance for the employer, and for you guys, it's free experience. And so Dee and I can help support you and do kind of a warm introduction for me to talk to employers and say, I have, this great student, I have Daisy Soto that is interested in A, B, and C. What do you think about creating an internship for her for fall? That's what is at the core of these experiences. We don't want you guys just, applying to whatever. We want you to be interested in it. So we are going to facilitate that as much as we possibly can. So yes, apply for what's out there, but also talk to Dee and myself and brainstorm with us as a group and tell us what you're interested in, because then we can bring that to the employers and say, this is what we have students that want, and then they can create something beneficial for you. So Daisy, to your question, you know, are internship hiring a limited amount of people? I would say right now it's not necessarily that it's limited. Some people traditionally pay the interns, and so those organizations are having a hard time figuring out if they're even allowed to offer unpaid internships. They are. Sometimes they just don't know that they are. And so for those, they're kind of pulling back on that because they don't have the funding. But this is definitely something that we can work with you on. And I don't want there to be anxiety, but the more opportunities you can apply for, the better, and keeping track of those. If you, Dee and I worked with an alumni, a recent alum, yesterday, and suggesting a tracker, keeping track of all of your applications is really, really important, because when you start getting calls for interviews, you don't want to confuse companies or positions or people's names. So that's a good way to kind of figure out what's going on. And there are definitely examples of sites that are hiring. That was the list that I provided. Those are sites that have either had postings over the summer or have postings right now for the fall. I didn't want to, since we're recording this, I didn't want to provide specific opportunities right now, because by the time, you know, 2 weeks roll around, it wouldn't actually be relevant necessarily. But working with Dee and myself about opportunities is going to be your best bet to find out what opportunities are out there that may not necessarily be posted to Handshake or some other websites. So these are great questions.
Do we still have time to do a demo for Handshake and where you recommend students can look for these internship opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, Dee, do you wanna go through that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, Jen, are you pulling it up on your screen then?
Oh, do you want me to? Okay, give me 1 second.
I didn't know if it was shared, so I could. So thank you.
And Mariana, were you thinking that you wanted us to share the process of actually submitting the request to Handshake, or how to do searches?
Well, I mean, we can open that up to the students. Where does everyone feel like they might be at? I think right now the biggest concern for students is where to find some and how to, well, I mean, I think they have a general idea of how to apply, but I think the opportunity piece is really key, right? Because if they need to secure something, we need them to start applying. And that way it can help them with their applications. You also mentioned the tracker as a resource. Is that a document that we can find somewhere to share with students?
Oh, the application tracker. We don't actually have like a template for it. For the most part, I always suggest to students just create an Excel spreadsheet. That way you can kind of keep track of everything. But Mariana, what I can do is actually create something, you know, pretty basic, and I'll share that with all the coaches, because
Sure. I thought Tasha had said that Braven uses one too for the students that were in Braven. Do you remember using something similar?
I did ask about that and didn't, the response that I received was a little confusing. And so I don't want to
Let me see what I can find. Yeah.
I don't want to confuse anybody. So I'll create something and share it with the coaches so that you guys can share it out with students. But you know, you don't need to overcomplicate the tracking process. It's just, you know, making sure you know the company, the internship position, maybe where you found it, where you applied, the date you applied, things like that, so that you know how often to follow up. You know, if you haven't heard anything in 3 weeks, yeah, let's start following back up with those applications. But let me pull up, I'm going to switch over to my student view for Handshake so that Dee can actually tell me where to go. So let me share my screen. All right, so this is what students see when they are logged into Handshake. And so Dee, let me know where you want me to go.
Okay, so I always have to switch my view. So give me 1 second because mine obviously doesn't look like that. Um, so now that we're in here, click on Career Center. I think that's going to be different from me.
This is what the student sees. I'm in
Yeah.
my student account, so this is pretty much what you guys will see when you log into Handshake.
So once you're on this page, you see down below where it says experiences. You're going to click on experiences. It's going to take you to another site where it says request an experience. You're going to request that, and then it's going to start asking you questions. So select an experience type. When you click on it, it's going to give you different options. So you see human services fieldwork is a second one there, HSM 291, 292, 493. Then you're going to select your term. You're going to scroll down to include who your employer actually is. In this case, we're going to say pause. And you see how it fills in some of the information for you. Now, I don't want you to be alarmed because it's very possible that you're finding an employer that maybe is not listed in here, and that's okay. You also have the option of typing an employer in, and then you would just enter the information manually in terms of the location. So um, we have students who find internships at places other students have been to, which obviously we love that because that means that that's an employer that's been interested in our students in the past. So more than likely they want to interact with our students again. Um, but again, it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen for you individually. Like Jen is constantly reaching out. Like I mentioned in the chat, My Block, My Hood, My City is an organization that she just recently started a relationship with. So they wouldn't necessarily be in here. So again, if the company's not listed, that's okay. So once you've entered the information in terms of employer, in terms of the location and industry, let me make sure I am. Oh, you're ahead of me. Sorry. I'm following along on mine as well. You're going to want to enter what the job is. Now, really quickly, the reason for all this is, as Jen mentioned, Carter Caldarelli is the person who's going to be in contact with the site manager for your internship. He's going to be the person who's reviewing this information. So this information that you're entering right now allows him to have the information that he needs. So you're going to enter job type as internship. You're going to enter the dates that you're doing the actual internship. You're going to enter the salary information. Now, if it's a situation where it's unpaid, again, that's okay because remember, there is a stipend that you can seek out. We also need the offer date. It's super important that your internship works in conjunction with you being in the CAR 490 class, or well, if it's an internship, but being in your fieldwork classes. So we want to make sure that it's working with the same time frame. We also need information in terms of did you accept the offer, who's your on-site supervisor, and then just whatever general information you can provide. Like what's their name? That's obviously gonna be something we need. What's their title, their phone number? This is information that Carter will use to reach out to them. Because again, there's information he's sending in terms of a survey to get their responses. And he's also going to be sending information your way. This allows us to make sure that we can update our classes the best way possible because, like I mentioned before, it's not enough to merely do the internship. We really want you to do this, to do the field work in a way that is going to push you forward. It's going to help you figure out whether this is what you want to do long term and also to build relationships there. So as you see here, there's a little checklist for you as well, which I think is super important because there's a lot of things there. It's not as much as it could be, but we want to make sure that you're clicking all those boxes because then it makes your life so much easier. You don't have to go back and forth, which unfortunately has occasionally happened, which is why it's best to get this in as soon as you possibly can. And then it's going to ask you when you're actually going to be doing the internship. Is this a summer internship? Is it fall, winter? And then you're going to enter some additional information here. Thank you, Jen. Then the next page, again, we're looking to see, is that Bob DePainter? We're looking to see, we're looking to get as much information as we can so that this process can be as seamless as possible. So there is a lot on the front end. And there are checks in there. Like we had the checklist. Here is the NLU hours requirements. So it's asking you how many hours, and it's reminding you it's 100 hours. It's essentially 10 hours a week. Asking you if it's on paid. And here's a question that's come up quite a bit. Can you do an internship with your current employer? Yes, you can. However, here's the thing. Let's say that you work at Target right now. And at Target, you're at the front. So you're either a cashier, bagger, whatever the case may be. Your internship can't be doing the exact same job. Your internship has to be a little bit different. And so for some of our students, what that means is we've worked with them to work with their employer to find something that they can do a little bit differently. So maybe what that new job looks like, and Jen just highlighted, it says, please refer to the resources in the D2L course for instructions on completing a current employer project proposal. Maybe what you're saying to them is, can I do something 10 hours a week that allows me to work in a community? Can I do something that allows me to work in a human resources capacity? Can I do something that allows me to work security or front desk or whatever the case may be? You can do it with your current employer. And for a lot of students, especially during COVID, that's been the easiest way to go about things, but it just has to be different than your job. So right now I'm the career services manager. If I was doing an internship with NLU, that couldn't be the internship. I would have to do something different. And our goal there is to add experience on. So then it's asking you some additional questions. So it's more than 20 questions at this point, it feels like. But again, we want to be as comprehensive as possible. So it's asking you, where is it going to be? Is it going to be remote, or is it going to be at their place of business? Even during COVID, we had some opportunities that were still at a place of business. And from a career bridge standpoint, that's not our decision to make for our students. We want to be very mindful of your health, as Jen mentioned earlier, in terms of coming back to campus. We want to be mindful of your health and how you feel about that. If you don't feel comfortable being on site, then we're going to encourage you to look for an opportunity that's remote. We're going to encourage you to ask about remote opportunities at the site that you're looking at, because they might be more prevalent than you think. But this also gives us a way to track what type of internship it's going to be. Is it on site, or is it going to be remote?
And I do want to point out that you'll see the different questions throughout the Handshake submission. Some of them are not required. Some of them don't have an asterisk, but fill in every single bit of information that you have, because that will inform us and Carter more when submitting your approval. Not every internship is going to get approved because it might be missing information. And if that happens, Carter will simply reach out to you to get additional information. It's not a huge deal, but with the few minutes that we have left, I did want to showcase a little bit of how to search for things through Handshake as well. Obviously, there's plenty of other sites that you can be utilizing, but you want to, at the top, click on jobs. Jobs are also listed under internships. So if you want to look at kind of everything that's out there, in the search box, you can just type in intern and see what comes up. It's a really good idea to make sure that you are using a filter for your location, whether you're in Wheeling, you're in Waukegan, you're on the south side of Chicago, you're on the north side of Chicago. You do want to try to put in as much information in here so that you can get the most relevant results. So let's see. It's not really giving me an option. Location, here we go, I'm so sorry. So I'm going to put in my zip code because that's going to come up with the most relevant results. So my zip code, if I can type, is 60640. That's Chicago. And I want to say my distance, how far I'm willing to commute, whether it's driving, taking public transportation, from my house for this experience. So let's say I'm going to put it at 20 miles, and then I can show results. So it's telling me everything that has intern in the title and in the description. So there's a marketing communications and advocacy ambassador. There is a job developer, marketing assistant. Obviously, some of these are more business related, so make sure you scroll through. This would be a really cool opportunity. Student engagement instructor / case manager. Click on that, review the requirements, and see if that's something that would fit into what you are looking for as well as what they are looking for. Sometimes internships are posted with the intention of them wanting master's level interns. Just make sure that you're reviewing the descriptions to see if this is something that you would be eligible for. Internship duration. So this one says 9 to 12 months. That is pretty long. If you want to continue doing something long-term and have a part-time opportunity, this actually would be a great option here. But if you think you only have the ability to do an internship for the 3 months, that works. But for doing 3 fieldwork experiences, 9 to 12 months may be a great option.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to point out, so it says how to apply. And Jen pointed out it's super important that we're paying attention to what they're asking of us. This says submit resume, and it's required. Cover letter is preferred. I tell students all the time, not every organization is going to want a cover letter. Oftentimes you don't know. It's not always going to tell you that. So it's not required here, but it's probably in our best interest to include it. And then what, Jen, can you go back to that? That was perfect. We talk about networking all the time. It shows us that there's someone from National Louis here. Doesn't mean that we necessarily know who they are, but that
And
might
we
be
have
a
a
perfect
student that's
opportunity.
actually interning right now at this organization.
Caesar just graduated.
Yeah.
So
he did his internship in spring, I believe.
So like seeing that there are other alumni there is fantastic, because it gives you an idea that this company, this organization is willing to hire from the school that I'm going to, and potentially even an opportunity to reach out and network the way that you're going to do once you're out of school, which is using LinkedIn, which is reaching out to people who are connected to both of you and saying, hey, can you do an introduction? Because then maybe Caesar can tell you a little bit about the organization and whether or not he's enjoying it, or can tell you who you need to contact. I'm a big believer on my cover letter, it should never, ever in this day and age say, Dear Hannah Center. Like, there's got to be a name. So you have someone who's there. Who'd you attach it to? Who can I attach it to? Asking questions like that can help you so much.
And it's also, notice that on the position posting, there's a button for apply. If it says just apply, that's usually an indication that you can apply through Handshake. Some of the other ones, like the marketing communications one, this one says apply externally. That means that the company did not give an option to apply through Handshake, that they want you to be using their company website. As a really good rule of thumb, it is a good idea that even if you apply for this position through Handshake using this button, that you also either let Dee or myself know that you've applied so that we could possibly send a recommendation over to them, as well as applying possibly to their company website. And that's to ensure that your information is getting into their system. And a lot of employers will use something called an applicant tracking system, ATS. And that is making sure that the applicants match to what they're looking for, whether it's a job or an internship. And so the company website is probably the best way to get in with a company, so that anytime that they have opportunities come up, you're already in their system. But again, letting Dee and myself know different applications that you have submitted, there's a likelihood that we either have a contact that we can reach out to, or this is a segue for us to have a contact to reach out to and have a candidate already ready to say, you know, this is a candidate from NLU that's a wonderful, they have so many things to offer, you know, A, B, C, D, and hopefully we can work with them to get more interns. So, you know, this is just one of many ways to find opportunities. Handshake, again, is a great resource. If you're looking at nonprofits, there's npo.net. There's also, Dee, what's the site that you recommended yesterday?
Idealist.org.
Idealist. That's a really good site as well. LinkedIn is a fantastic site for students to utilize to get opportunities. You can a lot of times just apply straight through LinkedIn. So that creates an importance of making sure your LinkedIn opportunity is up to date as well, so that you're showcasing everything you have to offer. So we're at the hour, but again, please, I encourage you, any questions, any brainstorming you want to do, reach out to Dee and myself. We are more than happy to make time for you. We want to make sure that you're getting as much assistance and support as possible. So I thank you all for attending today. And for those of you watching the recording, please reach out to us. Submit those requests via Handshake for appointments, and we will do our best to brainstorm with you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming
Thank
today. And
you.
again, reach out, let us know how we can help.
Thank you for everything.